Hey, no airbrush, no problem. In this episode, we're going to be painting our Italy Leo 2A6 with the NATO tricolor by hand with some detailed brushes and some wide brushes. I think you'll be pretty impressed on how it comes out. Thank you guys for watching, and please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. All right then, thank you. Bye now. Okay, so what we've got on the turntable is I've started painting the Italy 2A6, and these pictures are a completed Tamiya kit using the same hand brush techniques. So what I want to do is I want to show you that you can do a lot with brushes. Airbrush is definitely the way to go. I've been having some airbrush issues over the past couple months, and what I'm down to now is it's an airbrush I got off of Temu for 15 euros. I think it's more I think it's more for tanning than anything else, but it seems to at least give me a base coat. So you can base coat with a rattle can or just your airbrush or however you want to do it. But what I'm using here is I'm using the Vallejo uh, Panzer Gray. Now, to me, this looks a bit. It looks very much black, but I looked and it's Panzer Gray. But fear not, the weathering process will lighten it up a bit. So what I'm doing here now is what I like to do is I like to get a big blob of the Vallejo paint out. If you've got a wet palette that works or a piece of wax paper, just pour out a little bit. And I take a wet brush and I dip it in and I get nice smooth, squiggles that I fill in. One of the things I like to stress when painting camo is the decals, or not the decals, but the instructions you get with the kit always gives you some sort of diagram to work with. They don't always show you the all sides of the vehicle, so sometimes you have to wing it. So what I like to do is I like to get the shapes on there, as you can see, and fill them in. One of the things you have to be careful about is stay away from straight edges, straight lines, and corners when you do the camel painting. And I really think this applies really to any type of camouflage you're applying. So with the Vallejo, it covers nice. It's very smooth, and you can see how I have it on the vehicle now. And I'm just kind of filling in. It's almost like a coloring set. I'm just coloring in between the lines, keeping it keeping the shapes somewhat random, somewhat flowing, no straight lines, no sharp corners, and you can see how it looks on the top of the vehicle. I just wanted to shorten this video a bit, so I've done most of the vehicle. So I'm going to finish up this side with the with the black, which I'm sorry, the German gray, and then I'll be adding some NATO brown, and you can see it it works out pretty well, I think. For me, I have more control with the brush painting camouflage shapes than I do with the airbrush. So now what I'm doing is I'm coming back in with NATO brown. And NATO brown, it's the Tamiya color. And Tamiya colors, if I could have done this with Viejo, I would have, but the only NATO brown I had was the Tamiya. Tamiya sprays wonderfully, but sometimes it's a bit difficult to brush. So what I'm doing is I'm just kind of getting the edges filled in and working my way in, and you can see that I'm getting some nice contrast. You can also see on the NATO green, which I sprayed, that's a Tamiya color. Did a little bit of color modulation. I saw a kit online that had that before they applied the camo, and I thought, let's see what it looks like. But the NATO brown, just keep a lot on the brush. And I think it's easier and smoother to paint because Tamiya is a bit difficult to brush paint, and I find you're better off doing it with a wet brush. So again, like we did with the German gray, we're just going to outline it, and we just want random shapes. And since this camo would have been applied in a factory, the uh, the shapes are bigger. So you still the majority of the color is still the NATO green, but the patches, the blotches, or whatever you want to call them, are a bit bigger because it's professionally applied. I imagine if this is a 2A6, this was applied in a factory really with robots. So so what I tried to do is I tried to best replicate it from what the instructions had, and I got close. For some reason I just can't get it, exactly from the instructions. It just, for whatever reason, that seems beyond me at the moment. So I just kind of get a general idea what the shapes look like, and I just try to keep them, keep them clean, keep them where it looks the part. I don't want to overdo it with any one color, but I do want to make sure that I have enough color, if that makes any sense. On the bow of the vehicle, even on several of the paint schemes I've seen, the bow of the vehicle seems to have predominantly green and black, so that's the way I left it. The other thing that's interesting about this is the turret with the arrowhead armor and the extension to the bustle. The turret is enormous and covers most of the engine deck. So if you have the turret facing forward, you really don't see a lot of the engine deck. One of the things I'd like to say, and this goes with the Tamiya kit, I didn't have photo etch for the fan covers on the engine deck, but the plastic work they've done is amazing, right? And I'm really looking forward to hitting that with a little bit of a dry brush to get that to pop. So, and again, now it really is seasoned to taste. The On this side of the vehicle, right side looking from the rear, I didn't have any diagrams. So I tried to apply an equal amount, or you know what I mean, just have the proportions the same as I had on the side on the left side looking from the rear from the instructions. And if you look at the bow of the vehicle, you can see I've got some very clean shapes there that once we weather this, it's really gonna it's really gonna kind of fade it in, and it's gonna give it that airbrush look. That's why I just kind of showed you in the beginning the Tamiya kit, which I had finished. That was an old shelf queen that sat in a box for probably 7 or 8 years, and I just thought, let me finish that. So I hand brushed that, I weathered that, and I just wanted you to see what the finished product looked like. So with this, I had brown on the brush, so I'm going to start with the brown. There was a pretty good diagram that Italeri provides. Again, it's just left. You get a top, you get a front and a back, and just the left side. So on the right side, looking from the rear, you just kind of have to to guess it. But again, I've got a small brush here. I've kept a lot of the NATO brown on it. Again, this is the Tamiya, and it just flows better with more on the brush. And you can see I'm just going to kind of fill in the color in between the lines, as they say. And there's not a lot of brown on top of the turret. There's more black proportionally on top. Green is a base. The next color as far as proportion is black, and then you have the NATO brown. So again, we'll fill this guy in. And again, you can go back and touch it up a bit, but what'll happen, and with my weathering process with the oils, you'll see that it just kind of blends it all in. It's pretty amazing, I think, how that works, and how this will go from something that's hand painted to something that really looks the job as far as weathering and the way the the camo paint is almost looks like it's airbrushed on. So now what you want to do is you have the turret, and now you want to tie in the hull colors. So you can see the hull colors start at the sand skirt or the side skirts, work their way up the side of the hull and across the back, and I like to have a logical connection to how it goes up the side of the turret. So we're going to do the same with the brown here. We'll just run it in. I don't normally paint the grenade launchers. I leave them green. They're just fiddly to paint with, and I don't think I would get the coverage I need on the grenade launchers if I painted them anything other than green. I'll come back and do the caps on them in a dark gray or a black, and when we get to the weathering portion, I'll hit them with a dry brush, and they really pop out. So again, what we want to do is we want to have a logical transition from the hull to the turret side, and then from the turret side to the turret top, and you'll see that I'm coming up here in a little bit with black, and that it really shows you how to tie that all in. The other thing that's nice about this, I'm going to do some touch up here on the back engine deck. I left the shovels on there, and I just want to do a re-attack on the black on the engine deck. So now I'm back with the Viejo German gray, and I'm just working it in. And there's a pretty good diagram in the itinerary instructions on how to do this. And to be fair, all the Leos have this kind of, I don't know how to describe it. It's just a really neat pattern across the top that's in the black, and I just really enjoy doing this. So again, we're just going to paint by numbers or just color inside the lines. And there's this just to the left of the gun tube itself. It's just a neat way where they have the black in there. I just I for whatever reason I just like the look of this. So at this point, while you're working with bigger areas, you can probably switch to a wider brush, but at the moment I was rolling with a smaller brush and just kept up with it. Again, any mistakes that you make, if you're not happy with the way one of the shapes came out, you can go back in there with the base color, or you can go back in there with the brown or the German gray, and just clean it up. Again, we're staying away from straight lines and corners. We just want everything to be round and smooth. So we're having a heat wave here in France, so everything is drying really quick, which is a bonus because it allows you to just kind of move back and forth and not worried about smearing the paint or adding any fingerprints. So we're gonna fit this in. We're just gonna color this in and get it the way we like. I think the Viejo paints are excellent for this. I kind of had the opposite experience. I've never had luck spraying Viejo in the same way that I really don't have luck brushing Tamiya, but the Viejo really paints well, brushing in the same way that the Tamiya really sprays well. And it's this part of the camo that I think is really neat. So we're going to comes up to the commander's cupola, and it just kind of flows now. It splits off, and it goes left, and it goes right, through both cupolas, the loader's hatch and the commander's hatch. And I just think that's a neat scheme. So again, we're going to work our way over to the loader's hatch. I'm going to do There's a skate ring for the MG3. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that as part of my detail painting and weathering. Uh, there's no skate ring for the MG3 on the commander's cupola, so I will just paint over that. And it just goes back. And one of the things that I like to do is you can kind of work the camo colors in the nooks and crannies of like the black will go into the recess in the brown, or the brown goes into the recess of the black, and I just think that looks pretty neat. And some of this with the detailing on the vehicle itself, I'm doing a lot of dab dab and dib dib as opposed to brush strokes, just so I can get the paint in. So we're finishing up with the black on the top of the turret, and we just want to make sure that we tie it in on the side of the turret, and when we tie it in on the side of the turret, that it ties in to the paint on the hull. And one of the things that's nice about this is I don't get any overspray with this. In the past, when I've done this with an airbrush, where I'm tying in the hull to the turret, I end up with a bit of overspray that I've got to come back and correct. And this is what I mean about working the paint into the recesses. Like now, the black is going into where there's a recess in the brown. Staying away from straight lines. I've got a straight line there on the turret because, going from the top to the side. So I just want to bring something in that takes away that straight that straight edge. So now we're just finishing up. One of the things I'll do off camera is I will get decals on this. This is what it looks like painted up, and it's a bit light. The green is a bit light at the moment, but my weathering process will darken that.